like science.
I like science.
I like science.
The recording is in progress.
Science.
Recording is in progress. That's what the little computer voice told us.
Yeah, so welcome, brothers and sisters, to this latest edition. I should
Yeah.
say brothers and sisters and NBs and
Yes. Friends, family,
friends, family,
foes.
whatever you are, whoever you are, welcome. All are welcome here, and by that I mean
Rangers.
all. Rangers? Yes, Rangers.
Frangers. Well, I was doing F and I couldn't
Frangers.
think of anything for strangers. So
Frangers.
frangers.
So,
Friends, family, foes, and frangers. Foreigners. There we go.
oh boy, we're off to a great start. That's partially my fault.
Well, you did mention before we started to pray, so you're in a prayful mood. Let's dim the lights.
I am
Play some
praying to
harmonics on the organ.
the DM on high that I will not fail any of my saving throws during this podcast.
Charisma check. Performance. Well, history check to remember the episode. That
Absolutely,
all
of those things are going to come into play. Hopefully, I get advantage at some point. Oh, do you want to leave, buddy? You want to go?
Well, if your class is podcaster and your subclass is Star Trek podcaster, you should get advantage,
You would think.
being that it's related to your subclass.
Yeah, there we go. Thanks, Dave.
As you can tell, we were listening to Dungeons and Dragons and Dramas earlier today.
So much fun.
Yes. I
thought
loved
it was
the tech booth scene, having done tech booth for years at a comedy club at an improv house.
Yep.
It's like, what should I roll? I don't know. Dex.
Dexterity
It's
for
as good
sure.
as anything. You know, there's no, I mean, what do you do? Charisma? Do you do intelligence? Do you do
Yeah,
survival?
I like dexterity. I think that was a
Yeah,
good
it's like
choice.
dexterity kind of made sense. It's just, you know, out of the blue going, I don't know. There's no skill related to it. So I guess dexterity?
Yeah. I had a fun time with that. It kind of gave me just a smidgen of Magic Tavern vibe
A little
because
bit of Magic Tavern, a lot of Dungeons and Daddies, but that's
yeah,
because Neil listens to Dungeons and Daddies.
yeah,
And you
there's
can
that.
kind of hear the influence of a bunch of theater nerds being drawn into some fantasy realm.
Mm-hmm.
Love that the director is a barbarian.
I know, just
Or is it the
raging.
writer? The writer is the
The
barbarian
writer's the barbarian, yeah.
because he was raging as he's being held down by some cult members.
Yep. Mr. Kyber,
Yes.
the Lothario, whatever you want to call him,
Yep.
gave me strong Usador vibes.
Yeah, there's a lot of Usador there with his bombastic, over the top performances. It's very,
Yep.
very actorly.
Very actor who is completely full of himself, but
Yep.
not as good as he thinks he is.
If you don't know what this is, Dungeons and Dragons and Dramas is a new podcast that just dropped today, May 31st. And the DM is Neil
Newbon.
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 You want to say it
No.
with an R, but it's Newbon,
Yep.
who is a Starian in Baldur's Gate 3. One of the players is Dev, who plays
Devora Wild.
Lae'zel in,
Excuse me.
Devra Wild.
Devora Wild, yeah.
Devra Wild,
Devora.
who is Lae'zel in Baldur's Gate 3. And there's other voice actors and just stage and film and television actors as well that are filling in the rest of the group.
Yep.
And they're all different members of, you know, this play that was being performed at this theater in, was it Shetland? Something like that.
Shetland? Shitlington, something like that.
Shitlington. It was Shitlington, which is an actual place in, I think, Yorkshire. Shitlington, yeah, up north.
Good times.
So yeah, this is a Patreon only show. So it's what, $5 to get the podcast. There's no RSS, so it's hard to link it to your phone or
Yeah,
anything. So you kind of have to listen to it through the Patreon app or through your laptop. But yeah,
it
we had a
worked
good
out.
time with it. Two
Yeah.
hours of entertainment. So,
Yeah, very fun time.
hmm
Very fun. And I really love how everybody really committed to their roles.
yeah.
And and the thing is that Dev, she was a total noob to Dungeons and Dragons, but
hmm
then there was that Dungeons and Dragons campaign that the main cast got to do with this I can't remember the dungeon master's name, but it was set up by Larian.
Right.
And so they all played Dungeons and Dragons. Now, Neil has played Dungeons and Dragons many times, so he was
hmm
seasoned, but pretty much no one else in the group had. And so it was all just new to them. But Dev really has just run with it. She just
Yep.
keeps joining up in whatever live Dungeons and Dragons thing that Neil is a part of and just kind of is just going for it.
Yep.
And it's really fun to see her blossoming as a player.
Well, when Neil brought up initiative and she was like, "Oh, I know what that means." It's like, even I know what that means. We're about to get into a fight. He's like,
Yep.
"Yeah,
Fight, 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 fight,
fight,
fight,
fight,
fight.
fight, 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 fight."
So yeah, that was a lot of fun. So get your dice ready. Okay, there's no dice in this episode of DS9.
No.
I'm sorry, guys. I was just writing a Dungeons and a D3 high. Let's just call it D3. It's faster.
D3. Yep.
Dungeons and Dragons and drama.
Yeah, you can
And
follow him on Blue Sky under D3 Podcast.
yep, I would also recommend you follow all of the people from Baldur's Gate as well
Right.
that are on there. A lot of them are finally moving over.
Yeah, I should track some of them down. I think I follow Neil only so far, but I should
Yeah.
track down some others.
So yeah, sorry for the side quest.
Boy, you are in D&D, you're D&D pilled, as they say.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm not sorry. Actually, I love Dungeons and Dragons. I love role playing. I
hmm
think it's so
Yep.
much fun. It's my favorite kind of game, whether it's tabletop or video game.
Yeah. Console. Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, we are here today with you all to discuss Deep Space Nine, Season 5, Episode
Episode
22,
22.
Children of Time.
Children of Time. This was not the episode I thought it was, but
I'm
once we got
grateful that
into
it
it, it was
was.
like, oh, I remember this one. This is the Odo makes a really bad decision episode.
That is subjective, I believe.
Right.
I feel that that's subjective. But anyway, we'll talk about that later. But this one, it's actually a really good episode. It's a really interesting episode. It's giving you a decision that has to be made, and there's no good answer.
There's a lot of poor choices in this episode, and there's going to be a lot of people with regrets later on, but you don't really see it play out other than maybe, I don't even know if you see it in Odo all that much, but it's an episode that I think should impact the characters more than it does.
Mm,
Because you don't
that's
really
fair.
see any fallout from this in later episodes.
Yeah. I
That's kind of a new thing, though. That's a new
yeah.
Trek sort of thing. From Discovery onwards, we see more fallout from previous decisions than we did then.
Yeah, well, and there are previous decisions that have fallout later in Deep Space Nine. It's just not
Yeah.
every single episode.
Yeah, this isn't
So,
particularly one of them, but you
yeah.
could see how it could be.
Yep. So, let's just dive in because I don't want to start the discussion about bad choices yet.
Right. We'll get to them
So,
as they occur. But we
all
get one
right.
pretty early on, but yes, the Defiant has been out at the Gamma Quadrant doing, I
Recon
guess,
mission.
recon,
Yep.
reconnaissance missions. And they're returning to Deep Space Nine, and everybody's looking forward to going home. Kira in particular wants to sleep in her own bed rather than the bunks on the Defiant that are less comfortable.
Yeah. She's also talking about how she's broken up with Shakar,
hmm
whom I
And you
never
can see,
liked.
Odo getting uncomfortable during the discussion, while Dax is like, "Oh, that's too bad."
Yeah. It's like, yeah, yeah. Well, we went and I think, didn't they go and pray at a temple or something
Yeah,
like
the
that?
prophet said
And the
that they
prophet
don't
said
walk the same path. They're
they
not
don't,
equally yoked, to
yeah,
borrow from evangelical Christian.
Yeah.
language.
So yeah, she called it off and that was that. But my one of my favorite things about this cold open is when someone comes to the bridge passing around Rock de Gino's and Sisko says, "No, I'm trying to cut down."
Hmm.
And that ain't gonna last long.
Or
It's just
even,
one of those fun little
yeah,
things, just day in the life of.
yeah. Well, Brian even passed on it. It's like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, wow, room service on the bridge.
Yeah, well, the ship is a lot larger than we think it is. I mean,
Yeah,
comparatively, the Defiant is not, like Enterprise big,
right.
but it's a really sturdy ship. It's gonna get you through, but I'm gonna guess because there were 48 people on it, we find that out, it's not the smallest ship either. Um,
Right.
it's not a shuttlecraft. It's definitely a
Well,
ship
it's a
with a lot of
Warcraft, really.
yeah, it's fast, it's got good evasive maneuvering and all of
Hmm.
that sort of stuff. And so yeah. But yeah, they're on their way home and they get this notification on their phones.
Yeah.
Dex gets a notification about this anomaly that's happening nearby and this weird sort of quantum field, or what was it, a quantum field? I don't
Yeah, it
remember.
was a
What did I
weird
write down?
quantum field around a planet, and there's
Yeah.
suggestions of life signs and
Yeah,
discussions of whether it was
interference.
a fungus or not.
Yeah,
But
and so
Dax,
and
being a science officer of sorts, wants to investigate.
yep, and so she basically in the way that only Jadzia can, just guilt trips Pen into going down to the planet. So she wants to
Which,
find out what's
yeah,
going on.
poor decision number one is when
Yeah.
she says, well, if we, mess with the shields, we should be able to block the quantum energy. And it's like, should. It
Hmm.
should be smooth sailing. And it's like, it will be smooth sailing, sailing. Let's reduce. I mean, there's always margin for error, but we want to reduce that margin to as little number as possible.
Yeah, and honestly, okay, if you had been sent there to
Right.
to take readings and to survey the planet, whatever, I get that. But this
Right.
is something they did not need to do.
Yeah, it was on the way home. It was, they were waylaid over there. They had to stop. And you could mark it on your map. And I think even she says that it might be like the energy is because it's quantum, it's like, I don't know, out of flux or something that they only have this one opportunity to investigate. And I don't know how much I trust that. It's
Yeah,
it's odd because we're
well,
dealing with sort of with time travel, so it's odd. This scenario is the life signs that they pick up on the planet. What are those life signs? Are we getting a life signs from something that hasn't happened yet?
yeah. And that's the thing, she can't identify the life signs. So
Uh-huh.
it could be just larva, or it could be, people,
Yeah,
or
it's
it
like
could be
future
animals,
echoes
or
from th things that have yet to occur.
yeah. So, yeah. And of course, science officers can be tenacious
Yeah.
when they want to investigate something. So, yeah, as you all know, because I'm sure everyone's seen the episode, else you wouldn't be listening to this podcast, things do not go as planned.
Yeah, they enter the field and they start getting rocked around as they
Yep.
encounter this energy, and Kira gets zapped by space lightning.
Yep.
Which brings up the issue is I think this is something the Down in Front podcast or Friends in Your Head, because they had to change their name, did when they were reviewing one of the Star Trek movies, is that it seems like Starfleet doesn't understand how fuses work,
Mm.
that fuses should trip when they get like overused, like their power surge goes through them, a fuse should shut off so that that power surge doesn't reach a console and shock whoever's using it.
Yeah, that's what the fuse is there for, hence blowing a fuse. That's actually a good thing because
Right.
that means the whatever that energy surge was didn't make it to you.
Yeah, and so it's like, did Starfleet discontinue fuses? Because nothing ever seems to have them. Everything that gets a power surge starts creating shocks and and like arcs of lightning and fires sometimes.
Yeah.
It's like
Well,
nothing on the ship has a fuse.
it's something that maybe in addition to getting people who know stuff about whatever, it can extrapolate what could happen in the future.
Right.
Really, you couldn't see how fuses could evolve. Just you really
We
couldn't
just
get
have a
anyone.
future type of a fuse
Yeah,
that, a power
get an
dampener.
electrician. Get an electrician in there.
Yeah,
Just
when
get an
there's
electrician
excess
in there.
power, it gets shuttled off to something else where it could be stored and used later, even
Yeah,
like
right.
put that excess energy into a battery,
You would think.
something,
You would think.
or redirect it to the deflector dish. There's
Yeah.
things they could do, but nope, right to the console and we see Kira gets zapped.
Yeah. Odo had already gone to
His bucket.
regenerate in his bucket,
Yep.
and he ends up staying in his bucket for reasons.
Well, this energy apparently it affects him, and it's
Yeah.
difficult for him to maintain his shape in
Yeah.
this quantum field.
Yep. So so yeah, they decide, well, let's see where we are and see how we're going to get out of here. And there are scattered settlements. They did read scattered settlements and that they were human.
Hmm.
So they head for what I'm assuming is the nearest settlement and
Right.
find a
Which we
bunch of
see
people.
this like matte painting or whatever it is of
Yeah.
this quaint village with this field where for planting these crops and
Yep.
these little homes in this valley. It's very
Yep.
quaint.
And it's full of people who know who they are already. No,
Yeah.
they know they greet everyone by name.
Well, that's because we encounter a Dax.
Yep. A Dax and an
What,
O'Brien.
4 generations later, 4 or 5 generations later?
I think it's more than that because it's 200 years.
Yeah.
So I think it's more than 4 or 5, probably
Because
more
they
like
talk about
8
great, 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 great grandfather. So I'm thinking 6 generations.
at least.
Yeah.
At least.
Because, yeah, 200 years.
Yeah. So yeah, there's this whole colony of people that are the progeny of the people who were on Defiant.
Yep. O'Brien's, Bashir's, Dax's, Worf's,
Oh
or
my
Sons
God.
of Moog.
Sons of Moog. Um, Bashir is insufferable in this episode.
Where's his bedside manner? Because
Nowhere.
I can understand, his curiosity, and Bashir's always been like hit or miss during the show. I like the character, but the way he's written is like, depending on
Mm,
who's holding the pen, he can
yeah.
really be insufferable. And this is one of those instances where, he's excited that one of his offspring's becoming a doctor or is a doctor,
Hmm.
and that he's developing this interest in a crewmate that he hooked up with in this, I guess, alternate timeline.
Hmm.
Who he didn't wasn't even aware of her before, but because of being stranded on this planet, they hooked up and had offspring.
Yep.
And all the while, he's talking about, how wonderful all is and how fascinating and stuff. Meanwhile, O'Brien has family back at
Mm.
Deep Space Nine.
And
Bashir
as does
knows
Sisko.
this. They're
Yeah.
supposed to be best friends.
Yeah.
And the fact that Bashir is just blah, 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 and not noticing it. And that's kind of like a neurodivergent trait, to talk
Mm.
about something without realizing how it's affecting the person you're talking to.
Well, he has been augmented.
Yeah, so
So,
it's kind of that kind of, it's like, is this kind of autistic quoted or like coded for Bashir, him, just going off on this micro interest, this very specific thing that he's into to O'Brien without realizing that he's, hurting O'Brien's feelings or just annoying him
yeah. Or
because O'Brien,
it could also be just an ego trip.
yeah, it's just because it's Bashir.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, O'Brien, and they even said O'Brien was the last to give up hope
Hmm.
from the people, the crew that originally got stranded here 200 years ago because there's some kind of weird, there's that quantum effect thing. It's like
Well,
when they tried to leave,
there was an anomaly
yeah,
when they
there's an
tried to
anomaly.
leave and
Yeah,
they
the
hit the
first time.
anomaly
Yeah.
and uh it basically screwed up everything, pretty much
Yeah.
made the ship unflyable. and they had no choice. They couldn't fix it. They had no choice but to settle on the planet. So yeah. And
And Kira, yeah,
no, go
Kira
ahead.
dies in that
Yeah, I wrote that down. It's
original
like
timeline.
Kira dies. No, that was my note for that
Yeah,
because I've
yeah,
seen
and
this before, but it's been a few years.
so later she goes to her grave and prays at it, which is got to be weird.
That
A-
is, it is weird. She talks about how weird it is.
And there's a lot of the Bajoran religion in this particular episode because, she talks about the prophets and how, she left the guy she was with because, the prophet said that they're not walking
Shakar,
the same path, Jakar. Which
Shakar, not
Shakar,
Jakar.
Jakar? Yeah,
Shakar,
that's
Shakar.
why the name doesn't gel. Shakar. Was that the one? Okay, trying to remember the name of the actor.
I don't remember.
Yeah,
Cat, will
thought
you
it
make up your
was
mind?
is that the guy from Fright Night? Chris Randon? Did
I
he
don't
play him?
remember. I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
I'm sure somebody is shouting at us right now about who the
Yeah,
actor
well, we'll
is that
get to
plays
those
Shakar.
episodes eventually, but
Yep.
yeah, and how like the prophets, there's no real prayer about having, two selves. That's not something the prophets have really discussed at all with the Bajorans is, what's the possibility of having existed and died and now being at your grave because you're the past version of that person.
Yeah. So, yeah. Let's see. I've got so many
You
notes.
got so many.
Um, future Odo shows up
Right,
to talk
right.
to Kira. Yeah. He looks different. He looks more human.
Yeah, he's learned how to keep his shape in this quantum realm while also just becoming better at shapeshifting in general. So yes, he looks a little older. I mean, he's 200 plus years older now.
Yeah.
So,
But
and he's
also
been
he's
carrying the
goo.
weight. Yeah, he's goo.
So goo doesn't age the same way.
Yeah, yeah, the founders are long-lived apparently, or
Mm-hmm.
long-lived, depending on how you want to pronounce that. But yeah, he's been carrying a torch for Kira this whole time, and her death has been weighing heavily on him. Seems very lonely. It doesn't seem like he's hanging out with the rest of the community all that
Mm-hmm.
much. He seems to be kind of off on his own.
Yeah.
Because I really
Well,
don't get the impression that he's really engaging with everybody else all that much.
yeah, and that's the thing is that I wrote down with that future Odo confesses his love, just wants to spend time with her, and then I wrote after that, but I think there's more to it. And there
Mm.
is.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't just that. He was he needed to get on the ship for reasons.
Hmm.
And yeah, and he didn't want anyone else to know what he was doing.
Right. Because he has an agenda.
He does have an agenda. So, yeah. Let's talk about the actual people, the descendants that are on this planet.
If I can remember any of them other than Molly. So there's a lot of them. Supposedly there's 8,000. It's hard
Mhm.
to judge that from what we see, because there must be other communities.
Well, they
Because
said
there's
that there
like
was
at
a
most 400 people in this particular
yeah.
township.
Well, they it said before actually setting foot on the planet that there were scattered
Right.
human colonies
Right.
throughout the planet. So, yeah, that was already mentioned. But and this is when I should have written down names, but let's just go with this. O'Brien's descendant, lovely woman,
Right.
and tells him a lot of things about how he was the one to be the last to give up hope. Uh, Future Dax. I really like that actor. He was very, very good.
Yeah.
And he's found this solution to get them off the planet by a quantum duplication sort of thing, etc. And I'm like, there's no fucking way that's gonna work.
Well, yeah, it was a pretty tall order that the same anomaly that brought them there, what it did is it made an exact duplicate of Kira, but where is that Kira?
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that he says that is like, well, there was the evidence of that. If it happened to one and you can expand it to happen to everybody, including the ship, where's that one?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Nobody really thought about it at the time, did they?
Yeah.
Because otherwise, yeah. So long story short, they are enjoying being around these people, but at the same time, they want to go home. And the thing is, if they leave successfully, this colony will cease to exist.
Yeah, it collapses the timeline, which is always weird with time travel, is what persists and what doesn't, what creates a new reality, what doesn't, what
Mm-hmm.
things, because they happened, will always happen.
Yep.
And so there's some talk about destiny in this as well,
Mm-hmm.
that this has happened, so it's destined to happen. You just have to embrace it. And everybody's going to Sisko with their different theories and their different reasons why they want to stay or want to leave.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Brian being insistent of returning so he can go back to his family.
Yep.
You know, Dax having the guilt of all these lives being dependent on her because it was her mistake that brought them there.
Mm-hmm.
And, so she wants to stay.
Yeah.
And other people kind of vacillating between those two positions. And Bashir just kind of weighing a lot of them, but really more on the side of, yes, we're going home because
Mm-hmm.
he's got other issues. There's this war on, and
Yep.
they can't just shirk their duties and just stay behind. They have to, if possible, find a way off that planet and
Yeah. They
return to Deep Space Nine to continue their post of duty.
that's the whole thing. They have to make a try. And basically they've been made to believe that there's only one way to do this. And honestly, there is only one way to do it, but it's not the way that they've been told. So
Right.
there's just this I do I do appreciate this made me laugh. When I can't remember who Worf was talking to, but I think it
Oh,
was
just still kid,
O'Brien.
wasn't it? Oh, I
No, no,
see what
no.
you're saying.
It was O'Brien, and he was talking about how O'Brien was talking about how he needed to get home, and he's like, "Well, I have family too." And he's like, "You hardly ever see your son." And after that, I
Yeah.
wrote, "Worst father ever."
Yeah, and he had no response to that. He didn't even say that you dishonor me because it's true.
Hmm.
Is O'Brien sees what a poor father he is, what a poor father figure, and what a poor brother, because considering what happens to Kern,
That was
he's
unavoidable.
terrible to his family.
No, that was not Worf's fault.
Okay.
The whole thing with Kern was not Worf's fault. So he did what he had to do to keep his brother alive. But the situation there, that wasn't Worf's doing. It was just
Right.
the solution. So,
It's
but
like this little kid comes up and asks Worf if it's true if he can kill somebody just by looking at them. And it's like, only when I'm angry. And the kid kind of steps back like, ugh.
yeah. That's the interesting thing about the Klingons on this, or excuse me, the Sons of Moog on this planet, is there are some that are direct descendants, and there are some who have chosen to live the Klingon way.
Yep. Right.
And we only ever get to see like four of them.
Yeah, I think, yeah, three and then Worf. Yeah.
Yeah. No, there's four of them. There's two isn't there two males and three
No,
males
I
and one
only saw
female?
three, but there's also the young kid that wants to be one.
Right. I thought there was four for some reason. But in any case, regardless, yeah. They were talking about how they never, milk cows. That's not what they called them,
Yep.
or planted fields. They lived as warriors and hunters, etc. ad
Yeah,
nauseum.
they hunt and they trade furs for supplies when they need them.
Yep. Yeah. So
So yeah, they're hunters and warriors, but it doesn't seem like there's ever been a war
no, which is
in
funny
the
because
200 years.
warrior apparently means just being brave, I guess. Whatever.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
which is fine.
Because you would think with that separation over 200 years that maybe that Klingon imperialism, they would attack the human settlements and take them
Mm,
over.
I would hope not,
But we're also
because
getting Klingon culture from Worf, and we know
yes,
from previous episodes that his idea of what a Klingon is doesn't match reality.
nope.
So, what he crafts them to be is a very specifically Worf textbook kind of idea of what a Klingon is. It's rather idealistic and I don't know, just kind of abstract.
Yeah, because he was not brought up as on Kronos.
Right.
He was brought up with humans. And so everything that he knows about being a Klingon comes from books,
Yeah, it
basically.
lacks like cultural context.
Mm-hmm.
It's like somebody from outside's view of Klingon culture.
Yeah, which probably attests to why he's such a bad father.
Oh, yeah. And
Ah,
how when the Klingons realize that if the Defiant crew leave the planet, the timeline collapses, that they're all going to just disappear. They're going to be
mm,
erased. And so they all hand Worf knives, saying, "You kill us so
yep.
that we die with honor." And he promises to do it. And does he?
Nope.
No. And so
No.
they all died dishonorably and probably didn't reach Sto-vo-kor.
Well, that's the thing. Is it death if they never existed?
Was it be death if they died before the timeline collapsed? Would whatever soul they possessed go to Sto-vo-kor?
I would say, I would hope so.
And so their souls did not go to Sto-vo-kor because Worf never followed through,
Nope.
which is another poor
Ooh,
decision. He should have gone ahead and killed them all
yeah, I should.
and kept his
Damn.
promise. And
Damn.
so how does that dishonorable deed weigh on his shoulders from then on? We don't see it.
He
But
probably doesn't weigh on his
and how
shoulders.
many Klingons, how many sons of Moog, sons and daughters and Inbis of Moog,
Yeah.
friends, foes, family, and foreigners of Moog,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that how many of them just erased from history and never to go to Sto-vo-kor?
Yeah. And that's the thing. I don't condone Worf killing people to get them to Sto-vo-kor, but I understand it. That is their culture. And
Yeah,
so I wouldn't be upset if that happened. It just isn't my first choice.
no.
So,
And
but
that's a very Klingon thing is like, kill me so I don't die with dishonor.
mhm.
I die a noble death. I die in battle. I even do battle with them,
Yeah,
give them a
and
chance.
that's the thing. I don't know if it has anything to do with the fact that Worf once demanded the same thing when he broke his back.
Yeah. And so he knows what that means.
Yeah.
And the fact that he didn't follow through,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
oof, oof.
Mm-hmm. Big woof.
Yeah.
Big woof. So,
You can see little by little with, the crew's interactions with their descendants that they're becoming more and more attached to them. Like you see
mm.
Sisko with the little baby
Oh, so cute.
and with Dax calling in, I think it was Dax saying, things aren't quite adding up,
Mm-hmm. It was
We
Dax.
think we can do this, but it looks less and less like that's possible.
And they were going to try for it anyway.
Yep. Then
So,
O'Brien's starting to soften too with little young Molly and how that's a
mm-hmm.
name that's been passed down through
Yep.
generations. And they're becoming more and more observant that these are living beings, with lives and a history, and that
Yeah.
if they leave, it just all goes away.
Yep. So they're determined to keep the colony intact.
Right.
Um, do you want to just go ahead and skip to the end here? Because
Well, I think we're to that
yeah,
anyway.
yeah. So we find out, well, what happens is they go ahead and try to leave orbit and they're headed for the anomaly, and suddenly the Defiant veers off course
Right.
and they slip through a different part of the barrier. And once they're through, they scan and there are no humans, no colonies on the planet.
Yep.
And we
8,000
find,
all gone.
yeah, and Kira feels that all of that is on her shoulders
Well, it
because
was her decision to go, and like she pushed to go in the first place, and I think she
no,
might
I'm not,
have.
no, Kira, I'm talking about
Oh,
Kira.
Kira, I see. Yeah,
Kira
Dax
feels the
is
weight of
the
that
yeah,
because that was the whole thing. Was that if she stayed, if they stayed there, she would die. And if they left, she would be able to get back to Deep Space Nine and get
right.
treatment. So she feels like all of this is on her shoulders. It's not, but she feels that way.
I
And
hmm, I don't see that. I see her reflecting on old Odo's decision
yes,
that
but that's
she didn't.
before that, like when she's at her grave and
Right.
she's talking about, why should, all of these people die to save me?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
That was the whole thing. All of these people would have to die for her to get back to Deep Space Nine
Right.
and get treatment and therefore live. So that is the guilt that she is carrying. It's even worse when she finds out that future Odo came to present Odo, told him what was going on, told him what to do to get out of the barrier without destroying the ship and make it back to DS9. And that's what happens.
Which brings up a critical question is, could young Odo do anything about it after he was told?
No.
You don't think so? Because I think that's vague. Because we see him, I know maybe they were still in that quantum field and he connected with old Odo while in that state, but couldn't do anything because he couldn't shapeshift.
That's the thing. That's why he was still in his bucket. He couldn't come
Right.
out because
And
he
so he
couldn't
only
control his
came out
shapeshifting.
later to tell Kira once he could.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that's vague enough that I wonder if young Odo could have warned everybody.
Yeah, I don't think so.
And we didn't get to see him attempt it or
Mm-mm.
fail to be able, or an explanation. So he had prior information that he didn't give anybody, and they didn't say why. And that question mark is on Odo from then on. I don't know if young Odo could have done anything,
I
or if
don't,
he could and chose not to because Kira's that important to him.
but that's the thing. When he is in that gelatinous state, he cannot communicate with humans. He cannot
Right.
communicate with corporeal beings in the way that, corporeal beings could. So he was, yeah. And besides that, he was regenerating. So, but that's the thing. I don't think that he had any control over that at all.
And it kind
Only,
of
only old
indicates
Odo did.
what Odo can be like later, is what old Odo does. Is that something that's inside young Odo that could happen at any time? Are they the same person?
No, they're not because they haven't had the same life experiences.
Right. But that's a possibility. That
It's
potentiality is there.
That's the thing. That potentiality is in every person,
Right.
every second of every day.
So
It's
it does
just a matter of what brings it to the surface.
colors his relationship with Kira from then on, I think.
I think
Is
it
this idea of what he'll do for her, what lengths he'll go to for her.
My personal opinion is that he didn't approve of what future Odo did.
Well, I
That's
think
my
even
personal
says,
feeling.
is that something, I think Kira even says, is that something you think you would do? And he says, I don't know. I think
Yeah.
that was even something brought up in the episode.
Well, see, that's the thing. How can you say whether you would make that decision that the future person made?
Yeah.
How can you say that? Because the potential was already there. It's not like this situation made that potential. Because that's the thing. That's the thing about potential. Schrodinger's cat. Do you open the
Right.
box? Is the cat dead or alive? You don't know till you make that decision.
Right. So
So
until
that's
he's in
why,
that situation again, we won't know what
yeah,
decision he makes or how this might color his decision making from then on to know how it affected Kira. Because
yeah,
in defense of Kira, with the guilt and everything, she intended to go ahead and die for these
yes,
8,000 people because she understood the math of it. And
yeah,
that, yes, they could attempt to go through the anomaly again just to see if they would manage to save everyone and escape, because that was, the one option that served everybody.
hmm,
But of course, that choice was taken away from them by old Odo.
yeah. Well, and see, that's the big quandary of this. What is a life worth? How do you measure life against life?
Are you
How do
Withers from
you?
Baldur's Gate 3?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much.
What is the value of a
Tell you what
life?
the
Well, no matter what answer I give you, you're going to say fascinating and join us. So it doesn't really
yeah.
matter what I tell you. It's a weird
But
aspect of the dialogue tree in that game, but there you
yeah,
go.
but
So you can
that's the
answer anything. He'd be like, okay,
yeah. It's like, interesting. Yes. Well,
interesting.
I'm gonna wander over to your camp, but I'm gonna slowly walk through this temple and
Mm.
comment on everything along the way. It's hilarious to follow Withers out of that place
It's
because he
also,
just wanders around and then eventually leaves the building.
yeah, with the new a cleric subclass of the cleric of death that you can respond specifically about the god of death. Is like, well, the god of death says this. He's like, oh, I guess he does.
Yeah. So that's the thing. It's like, how do you measure the worth of a human life
Yeah.
against another human life?
Well, yeah, Cisco brings that up too, but isn't that the whole Spock thing, the whole utilitarian aspect of the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one?
Mm-hmm.
It's like the needs of the many, 8,000 people against the needs of the one, Kira. I mean, that's
Yes.
pretty big numbers.
Yes, but that is just talking about numbers.
Right.
Okay. You can't know from that point what Kira might do in the future, the people she might influence, the thing that those people go on to do. Same thing with everyone who is on that ship. We don't know what they do in the future. What they do in the future could drastically change everything
Yeah, and I
and could
think
be
that
more
was Cisco's
valuable.
point.
Yeah, and that could be more valuable than millions of lives.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. You can't know. You can't measure them equally because there is no equality there. You can't know if the cat's alive or dead
Yep. That,
when you make that choice.
yeah, Cisco thinks, what if this one life could save millions later?
Mm-hmm.
What does the 8,000 here matter compared to the million later?
And that's the thing. There's no good answer to this
Yeah.
question. There's no good answer to this situation. Somebody made a choice. Old Odo made a choice, and it affected everybody. But and you can't go back and change that. So, was Odo's choice right? Was Odo's choice wrong? There is no right or wrong. There's just the choice. We don't know if it was the right choice or not because we don't know what the future holds for any of these people that are on the Defiant.
Well, by that same argument, what of those 8,000 lives, what could any of them accomplish?
Well, nothing outside of their planet
Well, who knows what
because
technology they would develop later on?
yeah, that's the
I
thing.
mean,
Again,
that's
you
200
don't
years
know.
later. What about 2,000 years later?
Yeah. Again,
What they could
that's
achieve?
that's the thing. We don't know. We will never know
Yeah.
because we can't open the box.
Yeah, they already have a head start. You'd think that O'Brien would teach his children engineering.
Yeah,
You'd think
but
they would be taught what they knew and they'd be able to reach like star travel pretty quickly.
yeah. Well, that's the thing. We can go around and around and around this situation, but it all comes down to there's no good choice here, and there's no way to know one way or the other if that choice was right.
Right.
There is no way to determine right or wrong.
Yeah, it's a heavy episode
Mm-hmm.
and one with a lot of moral implications, and you get that with the old Dax.
Yep.
Is the guilt on that Dax and the responsibility of these 8,000 lives and having to ensure that the accident happens so you save those 8,000 lives. But also the memories of the original Dax who caused the accident in the first place by being insistent on in going there and
Yeah.
investigating when she didn't have to, or they didn't have to, because we are talking about the symbiote after all.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I feel like there were great performances in this episode, and I liked all the people on the planet
Yeah.
that I knew.
And we're supposed to, we're
Yeah.
supposed to get attached to these people and
Yeah.
realize what a tragedy is when they're just wiped from existence.
And if this was like the TOS era, they probably would have found some workaround, to make sure that colony lived on.
Well, I even said
But
that is like this is a problem that they were going to science their way out of, but they weren't given that opportunity because old Odo just messed up their whole trajectory and they avoided the anomaly altogether.
yeah, but that's the thing is that Dax knew that they couldn't science their way out of it.
Yeah. Well,
So,
they were prepared with what they knew happened.
mhm.
And so that gives them a leg up.
Yeah,
Is, this understanding of, hey, this is how this accident happened. If we avoid that, perhaps we can actually do this.
yeah.
But they weren't given that opportunity, which is kind of sad.
Yeah, but there's no guarantee that it would have worked because that colony was still there. It could
Right.
be that this happened in 1,000 different ways and they got stranded on the colony every time. We don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know. There are a lot of things that we can speculate on, but there's nothing that's concrete enough to say that yes, they could have made it out while preserving the colony or whatever, or found another way. There's nothing saying that definitively, which is why this is one of those things that is just so fucking real life.
Yeah, there's a lot of unanswered questions like what if
Mm-hmm.
they had succeeded? Would they be able to escape and would the colony still exist?
There's no way to know.
Yeah,
There's
we
so
just don't
many,
know.
there's too many variables in the entire situation and so many possible different outcomes that there could have been.
But they're not wiped from existence to the extent that they're wiped from memory, because Sisko brings
Yeah.
that up too, is that they're never truly gone as long as we remember them.
Yeah.
Is that we know that they existed. We know that was a thing. And I imagine, in his captain's log, he'll spell it all out. And I think in the personal logs of all the crew members, they'll spell it out too. And so you'll get tidbits of what these lives were that were
Mm.
then just erased from existence.
Yep.
And so that they did exist, just, are now gone.
Yep. As if they were never there.
Yeah.
Ending the loop, so to speak.
It makes you wonder if you could mourn for somebody who never existed, but they did exist. And so there's that quantum thing again.
Yep.
It's like,
Quantum
what is the
physics
worth
is
of a
a
life that could have been?
yeah, that's the thing. Quantum physics is a head fuck.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it. It's just a big old head fuck. And because each decision that you make, like even the words that are coming out of my mouth in some other reality are slightly different.
Right.
Or completely different, or I'm not even alive in that reality, or I'm not podcasting in that reality. See, that's the thing about the quantum universe. It's just
Mhm.
it's too big for our little brains to fully comprehend.
It's the whole thing about probability fields and observers and all
Mm-hmm.
that stuff is,
Yeah.
quantum entanglement, all that stuff. It's
It
like
also
every decision we make affects the reality we're in. And
yeah.
there's some other reality where we made a different decision and a whole other thing spun out. So
Yep.
who knows? And which
It's
of those realities is more real than the others is like, well, they
that's
should
the
all
thing.
be equally real.
Yeah.
And so all these infinite universes that have an equal state of, reality and meaningfulness. It's
Mm-hmm.
like they're all as meaningful as one another, you would think. It's like ours just happens to continue on in a weird way.
Yeah. It's like I said, it's a mind fuck.
Yeah.
So is there anything else that you wanted to talk about?
It's just a heavy, heavy episode. This one
It's
is
heart
just
it's
a
heartbreaking. It's really
yeah, and that's
heartbreaking.
why it's so and that's, maybe in future episodes we'll see if this did have any lasting effect on characters, but I don't think it does. I think it's one
Well,
of those
just
things, one of those episodes to reset from,
I
other than the romance with Kira and Odo. I think
yeah,
that's
well
the only thing that carries over.
that still takes a long time to come to a head. I think it's like closer to the end of season 6,
Yeah.
if I remember right, but I could be wrong.
Well, we find
But
out that Dax and Worf married.
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
But uh the interesting thing is that yeah, we may not see it on screen, but that doesn't mean that the characters haven't reflected on it. We just don't see it
right,
on screen because
right.
I can't imagine any of them would easily forget what happened to them on that planet and the people that they met and talked with and ate with and etc. I don't think any of them could possibly ever forget that. But just because they don't show it on screen doesn't mean that didn't happen.
No, it's just yeah, it's tough when, yeah, Deep Space Nine is a long form narrative, but there's certain aspects that aren't as long form as current Trek can be.
Mm-hmm.
So, the follow through of events in certain episodes, we just, we won't see.
Yep.
It's the events of an episode won't have a lasting effect on the character, and that's disappointing when it's something like this that you can see having a very large impact on characters, and yeah, you just don't see it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, though. It's not like they're gonna just insert scenes where, hey, you remember that time when we met our progeny?
Yeah.
That's not something that needs to be on screen, I don't think. It's just, we know it happened, they know it happened.
Yeah.
So they're not gonna revisit that because there are bigger things that they need to
Mm.
be doing on
Yeah,
screen.
more existential threats than the one that we're
Yes.
facing the people on this planet, which would
Yep.
be a good parallel, but they
Mm,
don't do it. So,
yeah. So, yeah. It's like I said, it's been some years since I've seen this episode. And I'd forgotten a lot of it, probably because it traumatized me.
right.
But as the older, more mature person I am, I'm still traumatized. But I also, just from knowing more about quantum realities and stuff like that, and just how the universe possibly works, that it is what it is. There's really honestly no good or bad here. There's no way to weigh anything against anything else because it all matters and it all doesn't matter. That's
Right.
the thing about Schrodinger's cat, basically.
Which is equally the most important and least important thing in the world.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's often determined by the person who's viewing it. So
Hmm.
there you go. Didn't know you were going to get into physics today, did you? Yes.
Yeah,
Here we are.
physics and philosophy where they cross to get into
Yes,
the whole
and
quantum
because
mechanics.
the whole thing with the light is it's both a particle and a wave. How do you explain that? Is
Mhm.
there anything else in the universe that does that? We don't know because we don't know what is in the rest of the universe, but
Yep, time is a construct.
it is. It is because it's just a big ball of
Hmm.
wibbly wobbly, timey wimey
Timey-wimey. Yep.
stuff. Thank you, 10th Doctor. Anyway, shall we find out what our next episode is then?
I suppose we shall.
Cool. Cool, 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 cool. I gotta get the the thingy up. The thingy. If I can't remember what the word is, I say thingy because I'm tired and old, and sometimes I forget what words are. Okay, here we go. That's not the one I want. This is the one I want. All right. So let's have a go with the Siri here. Hey Siri, give me a random number between 1 and 944. 576.
Oh, another one right around the middle there.
Yep, gonna be DS9 again, I think.
Hmm.
576. Oh, no, no, no. Yep,
Boy, oh,
576. Deep Space Nine, Season 7, Episode 24.
wow, that's really late.
Yeah, The Dogs of War.
Ah,
That's like
like
almost the end of the series.
yeah, really late. And we haven't done that one yet because that
It's
one, the name
that,
isn't familiar.
yeah,
Though
that
I know
one,
there's a song about it. So there's a Pink
yeah.
Floyd song called Dogs of War.
This is the next to last episode of the series.
Right.
So it's this series, and then it's what we leave behind, which is the
Uh-huh.
series finale. So
All right, gonna
wow,
be an intense one.
yeah, yeah, it will. I may cry during it. I don't know. I can't.
Yeah, we'll see.
Again, I can't remember what it is from the title, but as soon as we start watching it, I'm sure I will remember it
We
very
haven't had
much.
Brandy tears in the podcast yet, have we?
Not yet, but definitely when we start getting into newer Trek, we're gonna have some tears because
Yeah, probably.
there's a lot of stuff that, especially in Discovery, that would just
Yeah,
destroy me from time to time.
yeah.
Not necessarily in a bad way, but yeah. So there you go. Set your
Dogs of
phasers to
War.
stun and stun some dogs of war with us in
Yep.
2 weeks.
Deep Space Nine, Season 7, Episode 24.
Yep.
All right.
A dog of war.
Dogs of War.
Yep. Yep. So there we are.
There we are.
Okay. We're on Blue Sky. Is it
Shield
under shield
Modulation.
modulation?
Yep.
Yeah. Plus, you're individually on it as,
TJ Evil Dave.
and I am Brandywine. Haha. And what else?
There's a new podcast to, well, not new, but there's Boldly Go.
Mm-hmm.
When Strange New World starts airing once again,
In
Brandi and
July.
I will be reviewing those episodes as they air shortly after they air.
Mm-hmm.
This is to deal with some scheduling issues regarding Boldigo, just make it easier to record. I don't know if I'm going to be the co-host for every episode,
Yes.
but oh, okay. Because I thought maybe if you could get a different guest on that I could step out and leave them
Yes. We shall
space.
see. We shall see.
Yeah,
Because I really
because
want to get
yeah.
my friend Ashley up in there.
Yeah, because I don't mind if, you trade me out for the people you can schedule with, but just because, it's difficult to schedule, and I know that you wanted the show to be all, femme presenting people
Yeah, but
originally.
it's not so easy because we're all really busy. All of us female presenting people are really busy with other stuff, including our own podcasts.
Yeah, so
So
yeah,
that's part of the problem.
yeah, and since I don't really count, I'm not into masculinity really at all.
Yeah, he's a feminist for sure, you
Yeah,
guys.
so
You
I'm
know
I'm
that.
just gonna co-host with Brandi, who's gonna be the one. I mean, that's gonna be the big difference between this and that show is you're gonna be like the one holding the reins, and I'll be there for like color commentary or whatever. Unlike this one,
Yeah.
which is more of a 50-50 partnership where, we both put in our
Yeah.
equal halves into the production of the show. That one's your thing, and I'm just going to be there
Yep.
running, color commentary. And so there should be a difference when we get around to, because we will review the same episodes and on this show as we would that, because that's
Mm.
just the nature of this show,
Yes.
is this is all of Trek.
Yes.
And so if we run across a Strange New Worlds episode that we cover in that, I mean, the chances of that are nearly 1 in 1,000
Yeah.
at this point. But
Hmm.
yeah, just something to think
So,
about too, whether we should go weekly or not. But that's something to discuss further later
well,
on.
we'll be going weekly with Boldly Go,
Yeah,
of
Boldigo will
course.
be a weekly show, while this one is
But
every 2 weeks.
yeah, but and I'm also a big fan of this not editing thing because
Yeah.
editing is the bane of existence. It
So that's
sucks
going to carry
ass.
over into
Yeah.
Boldigo is the same kind of format of not really having segments and just not editing. So it'll
Yeah.
just be raw audio, just
Just
cut for time
word
and
salad.
yeah,
Word salad. That's what it
time
is.
and noise. And then other than that, it's
Hmm.
whatever's said is said, vocal ticks and all.
Yep. And that's fine with me because that's real. It's
Yep.
real. And I don't need to
Uh,
be polished and professional because I'm not getting paid for this.
we're also on YouTube.
Yes.
Under DJ Evil Dave with underscores, and you'll find Shield Podulation there, as well as a playlist of songs sharing the title as close as possible with the episode of Star Trek that we review.
Hmm.
You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. I think various other podcatchers might have us as well, just because of that's just a distribution thing. You can also hear this on Hear This, which is a website that I put the MP3 directly to. So if you're not a fan of Spotify or Apple or, similar companies, you can hear us on Hear This. I took us off SoundCloud because SoundCloud is allowing AI to learn from the audio put
No.
up by its users. And so
Nope.
I've stopped using SoundCloud.
Good.
So
Yeah.
something else.
I'm tired of AI plagiarizing. I really am.
Yes, it's a plagiarizing machine or a plagiarism machine. And the fact
Hmm.
that corporations keep pushing it
Yep.
is it's not paying the people that have contributed stuff to it. And I don't get why companies get to use content without paying for it when if we use that company's content, they'd have us pay for it. It doesn't seem fair. And the
Yeah.
fact that so many people are bending backwards to allow AI to do whatever it wants when it's just a
Yeah.
plagiarism machine. It just shits out whatever you feed it. That's all it does. There's no
Yeah.
originality there.
And I swear to God, like every shopping website has now an AI thing that like if you have a problem, it'll go to AI first.
Yeah.
And the AI will ask you questions. And then when it can't solve your problem, you'll finally get to talk to another person. Do you think that there's any time that AI has ever solved my problem? No, not
Uh,
once. It always had to go to a real person.
And Google's unusable now because of
Mm-hmm.
AI, because AI always offers either what its programmed to for promotional reasons, or
Yep.
it's just picking up wrong information because it collects information without acknowledging whether it's usable or not.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can ask it AI certain questions and it'll give you the wrong answer.
Yep.
And even now, students are using AI to write papers, and professors are using AI to grade them. And nobody's working anymore. They're just allowing AI to do the stuff for them, and it's ridiculous because it's just robots judging robots.
Well, and the thing is that if that keeps happening, the human element is going to be removed from the process.
Yeah, yeah, there's not going to be any human interaction in it whatsoever, really.
People are going to lose jobs.
Yeah. And if you look at AI art, it's just bland reproductions of stuff before that's all glossy and weird or and that's the good stuff. And the bad stuff is it's just uncanny valley, people with seven fingers thing.
Yeah, well, it's getting more precise to the
Yeah.
point where it's difficult to tell if it's AI anymore.
But that precision is because it's stealing from actual artists and
Exactly.
reproducing their material.
Exactly. So we will never support AI. So
Yeah.
please
Generative
don't.
AI stuff, just
Yeah.
stop using it.
Yeah.
Disable it if you can.
Hmm.
I think Bing allows you to disable it, and DuckDuckGo allows you to disable it. You can't disable it on Google, as far as I can see.
Weird.
They're just running with it, and you can't do anything about it. So
Yeah.
it's like Google's just not usable anymore. David H. is interacting with me over World Goth Day and lamenting the passing of the Dark Corner podcast, which we
Oh.
used to host
Yeah.
and was really about goth culture and stuff, and was missing me talking about music. So I thought maybe I'd leave one thing and talk about being femme presenting. I'd like to, and also being May 31st and World Goth Day was the 23rd. So we're about to enter June. So it was last of May, probably last day to really push anything goth, in honor of World Goth Day. So I'd like to talk about the band Bastet, all femme presenting band, a death rock band from Oakland, very raw sound. A lot of the stuff is available on Bandcamp. There's an EP called Ishtar that kind of got this Egyptian vibe, of course, with the Bastet, logo thing, but raw, guitar laden, uh, punk influenced death rock, very much like the original LA death rock stuff, but from Oakland, where a lot of death rock bands have been popping up lately. So seems to be a big death rock resurgence in that city. So that's something to check out as a little of a Bastet for you. So
Cool.
yeah, there I just talked about music for a bit. Maybe that's something I'll do maybe
Music
once a month,
corner.
maybe. I don't know.
You can do it as often as you want, babe.
Yeah, yeah, and also there's the DJ Evil Dave YouTube, and I've got music on there too. So,
Yep. Thanks again to Dan for allowing me to use his spreadsheet
yep.
so that we could keep everything straight. I'm gonna have to start adding episodes to it for Strange New Worlds. That's gonna be weird. Yeah, we have seen actually half of the season because of
Yeah,
screeners.
we've got screeners and
Yeah,
yeah, no spoilers, but
we tore through
the
them pretty fast because yeah,
the first episode of Bold to Go should be quite something.
it's yeah, I'm not going to talk about it in any way, shape, or form
Nope.
because I do not want to give any opinions at this time. So you will have to wait until episode 1 of season 3 of Boldly Go.
Yep.
And yeah, and thanks to Tim for being cool. Thank you, Patrick, for just being my friend for what feels like forever.
Hmm.
Dude, you're the best. I have so much fun with you. So we will see you, or you will hear us in 2 weeks hence, and we'll talk about the
Yep.
Dogs of War, and
Yeah, more Deep Space Nine.
I will probably be destroyed by the episode. So
Yes, probably.
all right then. Okay, we love you. Bye.
Bye.
Sto-vo-kor.
Sisko.